All right, just for the record, just want to point out that now on the uh, Temple Beth Zion website, under the calendar, under my material, there's now all of the material for March and April. And there's also a Hebrew collection and an English translation collection of the first 6 chapters of Exodus in color coding. So that, for example, we're in chapter 4, verses 20 to 26 right now. If you wanted to see where we are, you could go to this material here,
Mhm.
go down to chapter 4, which begins here. And you notice the bulk of chapter 4 is this encounter between Moses and God and all that God commands and the teaching with the miracles. Chapter 4 parallel story is the
The
blank
blanks.
space.
Mm.
All of that, chapter 4. And then from last week, chapter 4, verses 18, we had some 17 to 19 and 18 as an
Mhm.
alternative. And now this week, 20, half of verse 20 is in the red story, half of verse 20 is in the blue story. And
Mm.
then the rest of 21 to 26 is in the red story with a little bit, which we'll look
Mhm.
at today, of the editor redactor adding to that story, again in the middle of verse 21. You'll notice that the red story then continues on down through chapter 5, through chapter
Mhm.
5, through chapter 5, with all of that encounter. And then all of a sudden in the blue story, we go from chapter 4 to chapter 6.
Mhm.
And so chapter 4 was a little bit of the encounter between Moses and God. Chapter 6 is going to be the rest of that encounter between Moses and God, which comes after the red story of chapter 4 and 5 of the encounter between Moses and God. So it becomes as if this was all one encounter, when in actual fact, it was two completely separate encounters.
Hmm.
So going back to this week. So God says, go do it. And just a comment later about Moses's attempt again to get out of the job. But Moses then, verse 20, Vayikach Moshe et ishto ve'et banav vayarkivem al hachamor vayashov arza Mitzrayim. So now in this story, Moses takes his family, whereas in the another story, we're going to find out Moses leaves his family with his father-in-law. And we don't know where he's been up in this encounter, and we don't know where his family is or how he got back to them.
And why is
All
it
of a
only
sudden,
one donkey? Shouldn't it
and
be?
one donkey.
It should be plural. Because how are
Well,
these all these people fitting on one donkey?
well, it was an super wide. It was an SUV donkey,
And poor
mini
donkey.
minivan donkey. Vayikach Moshe et ishto. So he took his wife, his woman, ve'et banav, and his children, plural. And
Mhm.
that's what that yud is doing in there in banav, is it's telling this is a plural sons.
Well, is Hebrew like other many Latin languages where the plural of male and female is the male?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't know if he has only sons or if he has sons and daughters. And we get that also with Bnei Yisrael. The sons of Israel become the children of Israel.
Hmm.
Mm.
And that's the future generations. And Vayarkivem and Rachav is the putting up in the saddle. So he set them on the saddle.
What happened to Bayar Kibai thing?
That's the Rakav root, is
Yeah.
the settling in the saddle. Vayarkive, and he saddled them up, and Vayarkivem, plural. So he set them, his wife and his sons. Important to note that according to this, he has sons.
Mhm.
And al hachamor, and he put them on the donkey. He set them on the ass. Vayashov artsa Mitzrayim, and he returned toward the land of Egypt. And in the blue story, he doesn't do anything with his family. He simply vayikach Moshe et mateha Elohim biado, and he took, that is, Moses took the staff of the god or gods in his hand. And again, this is that staff that turned into the snake. This is that miracle staff. So now he's with his family in the red story, verse 21. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe belechtecha lashuv Mitzrayma re'eh kol hamoftim asher samti viadecha va'asitam lifnei Faro va'ani achazek el libo et libo v'lo yishalach et ha'am. So now he's heading off with his family towards Egypt without the staff, just with his family. And God, I guess, in parting, one would say in the red story, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God says to Moses, Belechtecha, lechet is the holech, the walking, the going, be in cha you. So in your walking, or in your going, lashuv Mitzrayim, to return Egyptward. Now, one of the things we don't know here is where is he and where is Egypt and where is his father-in-law geographically in this story.
Mm.
So did he take his family up to the mountain and now he's going back by way of home back towards Egypt? Or did he take his family up to the mountain and now he's going straight to Egypt? Or did he go up to the mountain and now he's returned home and he's picked up his family and he's heading towards Egypt? We have no geography or directionality to the story.
But was he trying to escape the original instructions of God?
It doesn't seem to be, because he's still talking to God and he's heading back towards Egypt, or at least God thinks he's heading back towards Egypt. So somehow Moses is going away from this encounter, and God says, "Belechtecha lashuv Mitzrayim," in your going to return toward Egypt. So as you're walking along the way, to use the language later of the Ve'ahavta, as you are walking along the way towards Egypt, returning towards Egypt, Re'eh kol hamoftim asher samti viadecha. Re'eh, look or see, kol hamoftim, and moftim is the wonders, all these miracle things, all these signs he's been given. So see all the wonders that I put viadecha in your hand. In other words, practice your magic tricks. Look at all these wonders in your hand that I've given to you. Va'asitem lifnei Pharaoh, and you will do them before Pharaoh. So practice these tricks because you're going to use them now in front of Pharaoh. The story then goes on in verse 22 when God says, and say to Pharaoh, but the editor redactor stuck a little something onto verse 21 that is not in the red story.
Mm.
God says, Va'ani achazek et libo, and I will strengthen his heart. By the way, not harden. Chazak is strong. I will strengthen his heart. V'lo yishalach et ha'am, and he will not send the people out. So this is nice to God saying to Moses, so here's a job for you, and I've already guaranteed failure.
Okay.
Go to Pharaoh, show him all these miracles, and then the editor redacted has God saying to Moses, and it's not going to work.
But the
Mm.
fact that he was going in a different direction isn't interpreted like that he was like Jonah, and maybe others who are very reluctant prophets.
Well, he's not going a different direction. Here, he's clearly going back towards Egypt. He's
Right,
returning to
but
Egypt.
the fact that he had to be turned back, he already said I'm not a leader, right?
Right, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
but apparently, because it's not turning back, Lashuv is not necessarily to turn back, but it's to
The
return.
return.
So that's why I say we don't know the geography and the directionality.
Hmm.
We don't know if he's gone down the mountain towards Midian away from Egypt, or he's gone down the mountain towards Midian and towards Egypt, or he's gone to Midian and now he's going back past the mountain to Egypt. So yes, midrashically we can say lashuv to turn back. You're going the wrong way, Moses.
Mhm.
But that's not necessarily what the Hebrew says.
Mm.
You can drash it in both directions.
So, but it doesn't necessarily imply that he is already walking
Right. It
because
actually says, as you will be going.
because it could have otherwise have been that he came from Egypt, right? So now he's
Yes.
returning to Egypt,
Yes.
but that's not what it says.
That's not necessarily what it says.
Mhm.
Again, we have sparse language, which gives us lots of midrash.
Mm.
But I think part of the point for us is that the editor redactor later adds into the story that did not have the guaranteed failure in the story, the foreknowledge of failure, which is a nice thing to say to somebody who wants to get out of the job in the first place. I don't want to do it. I'm not a good talker. I'm not a speaker. I got this problem. And God says, don't worry. I'm guarantee that when you go and talk to Pharaoh, it's not going to work.
Well, Aaron is somewhere in the midst because he's the one who
Not
helped.
yet.
I know, but he's the one who's going to eventually help him.
Well, that's what we'll find out. But right now, in this story, it's Moses.
Yes. And
Moses and
Zipporah.
God and Pharaoh.
And Zipporah.
And all of a sudden, Zipporah and his sons.
Mm.
And God further says now in verse 22, V'amarta el paro, ko amar Adonai, b'ni b'chori Yisrael. And so now practice these magic tricks as you're going along the way and show them off before Pharaoh. And then you will say, V'amarta el paro, and you will say to Pharaoh, quote, Ko amar Adonai, thus says Yud He Vav He. Quote, B'ni b'chori Yisrael, my son, my firstborn, Israel. And there is no verb to be in the present tense anywhere in Hebrew natural grammar.
Could you go over that again? That he says you will say to Pharaoh, what is ko?
Ko, thus.
Oh, that's
Thus.
You will say to Pharaoh, thus says Y, the Y guy. And now quote what the Y guy says, B'ni v'chori Yisrael, literally, my son, my firstborn, Israel.
Which is really strange.
Yeah.
I
oh,
think it's very strange. And it almost comes like when they take the whole thing for the New Testament. My first son, my firstborn, you
Well,
know.
or back at through the rest of Genesis when it's never the firstborn.
Yeah, but I mean, his first son, Israel, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so is this B'ni B'chori Israel, my son? is my firstborn of Israel?
Of Israel would make sense.
Or is this B'ni Bechori, Yisrael, my son, the firstborn, is Israel?
Hmm.
See, we
That's
don't
a
have ofs and is in
Hmm.
Hebrew as an automatic the way we put them
yeah.
in English.
Right.
In Greek, the same thing is true, that there isn't a present tense of the verb to be.
Right, which gives you wonderful ambiguous statements
Oh, so true.
Mhm.
until they become unambiguous because the right people have interpreted it the right way.
Yeah, I took a class
Oh,
with
the
some of those
right
right people. It
people.
was really boring.
Yeah, who's the right people?
Oh, those
Mhm.
people who they live in Cambridge, I can tell you. But they know everything.
All right, so this is what you'll say to Pharaoh, 23. Va'omar elecha. This is now again an internal quote with Moses and God's being quoted. And again, we don't have punctuation, so we don't know where quotation marks begin and end, and
Yeah.
we don't know necessarily what are internal quotes within a quote. So Ko Amar Adonai, thus says God, B'ni v'chori Yisrael, that's clearly God speaking. Is verse 23 a continuation of that quote as the Torah has it listed, because the Torah just has one solid block of text, or is it as the much later uh, medieval divider of text into uh, chapters and verses, a new verse? So Va'omer, I will say, Elecha, to you. Is this Moses saying to Pharaoh, I will say to you? Or is this Moses saying to Pharaoh, God says, I will say to you? And of course, the answer with this great ambiguity of grammar is yes. Which way would you like to drosh it?
It it really sounds more like it's God, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean that's the traditional meaning, the classical commentary is this is a continuation of God speaking through Moses. But you can do wonderful things if you decide to make it different. And the Hebrew does not contradict the difference. It may say that's a stretch to make the Hebrew say it, but again, without chapters and verses in the Torah text, we don't know where to divide the quote.
Hmm.
But this is what somebody's saying. I will say to you, Shalach et b'ni, send my children. So that would further say that this is God continuing to talk. Vaya avdeni, and they will serve me. Vaya avde, they will serve, or he will serve, because it's the collective noun b'ni, my son, and this is Israel. Vaya avdeni, and he will serve me. Vatima'en l'shalcho, hine anochi horeg et bincha v'chorecha. Vatima'en is a refusing. Notice the word tima'en, the root tima'en. If you switch the mem and the aleph, you have ta'amen, which you will believe. Switching the mem and the aleph in order, you have you will believe. Keeping them the way they are, you will refuse.
Wow.
Why is that significant?
Just playing with Hebrew words and letters, because in gematria, obviously, if it's the same letters, it's the same numerical value, and therefore you can equate.
Okay.
So there can be a whole commentary on believing and refusing are two sides of one coin.
Thing.
An interesting idea.
What? So
rather
why?
than believing and not believing. That it's
Yes,
stronger than that,
yes.
on the assumption that believing is the natural thing.
And you have to flip it around in order to refuse.
Yeah.
What? Why does that verb not have a you um, suffix? Huh?
The tima'ain is you will refuse.
Yeah. Isn't
The
Oh, I see.
root
It's
is
the subject, not the object. Okay.
yeah, you will refuse.
Mhm.
L'shalcho, to send him, to send Israel, to send my son. So God says through Moses, send out my son to serve me, and you're going to refuse me.
Mhm.
Moses is saying to Pharaoh, you will refuse me. Or we can read it as, should you refuse me? Tima'ain is an imperfect. So therefore, if you refuse me, in your refusing me. So it's not necessarily Moses saying to Pharaoh, I know you're going to refuse me. This could be Moses saying, and what happens if you refuse me? Or should you choose to refuse me? To send out the people, to send him out. Hine anochi horeg et bincha bechorecha. Behold, I will kill your son, your firstborn. That's quite a consequence. Don't let my son go. I'm just going to kill your firstborn.
So what's horeg?
Horeg is kill. It's a little bit stronger than we usually see it in cause be the death of Tamito or something like that from Mavet.
This is the 10th plague. What happened to the first nine?
Well, this is no plague. This is
Well,
just
this is what becomes the 10th
it
plague.
becomes the 10th plague, but right now it's simply a statement of consequence if you don't let my children go.
Okay. So this is like a foreshadowing.
Could be, yeah, absolutely. When we get to the plagues, we'll find out whose story they are. But this is now what God tells Moses to say to Pharaoh. So God is writing the script for Moses. And all of a sudden, verse 24 through 26 comes along.
Oh, so basically he's not talking to Pharaoh here. This
No,
is
this is God saying, here's the message.
okay, so this is all these, like you say, the script
Exactly.
Yeah.
preparing him. Okay, I got it.
This is all the script that started way back here when God
Okay.
says in verse 21. But meanwhile, verse 20 is connected to verse 24. We don't know if verse 20 and then 24, this story of Moses' wife and sons, was originally a separate story. And we don't know if it was combined by the red author, which was then combined by the editor redactor, or if it was two separate red stories that the editor redactor split up so that it sounded like it was one continuous red story. But if you read verse 20, Moses takes his wife and his sons, sets them up on the donkey, and heads towards Egypt. Verse 24, and as they're going along, so we don't need anything between 20 and 24,
That's right.
which makes more sense in the story if they were originally a separate story.
Well, what's
But
interesting is why didn't they just take 24 and 25 and 6 and put it up there before this other stuff?
exactly, because either the story by the time the editor redactor received the red story, it had already been split, or the editor redactor took these two separate red stories and wove them together into one story that you really didn't think about. I mean, how many people really have read frequently this verse 24 to 26 story about the circumcision by Zipporah of her son?
Well, it definitely seems misplaced.
Yes, it does not make sense in the current story. So therefore, we get to either really play with it or we get to ignore it.
Mm. Well, I guess most people chose to ignore
Exactly.
it.
So let's see what's up with this possibly other story of Zipporah circumcising her son, singular, when she has more than one, according to verse 20. So verse 24, Vayihi vaderech bamalon, vayifgeshehu Adonai v'yavakesh hamito. So Vayihi vaderech, and it was along the way, it was on the road, bamalon, at the Hilton, Sheraton, Ritz. A malone is an inn or a way station, a resting place. So they're going along the way. Verse 20, they're heading back towards Egypt by way of something. And apparently night falls and they stop at an inn at the Midian Hilton, the Midian Marriott. Vayifgeshehu Adonai. And Vayifgeshehu, he encounters him, or they encounter him, or he encounters them. We have a little bit of ambiguity of the pronouns here. Adonai, so Adonai would seem to be the subject. God encounters them. Vayivakesh hamito, and God requests to cause the death of him. And we don't know who the him is. Who is God threatening with death? Apparently, Tzipporah believes it's her son, but maybe Tzipporah believes it's Moshe, because verse 25, Vatikach Tzipporah sur, Vatichrot et orlat bena, Vataga l'raglav, Vatomer ki chatan damim ata li.
Wow.
Wow. So, Vatikach Tzipporah sur. So, Tzipporah takes a flint knife, a sharpened stone, which is what you used as a tool back in those days.
Which one's that? Sore?
Sur.
Okay.
Vatichrat et orlat bena. And she cut off the uncircumcised part of her son. Orlah, by the way, is uncircumcised. Moses says, I am orlat sifat, aral sifatayim. I am uncircumcised of lips, whatever that means. I mean, usually orlah is translated as foreskin, but technically it is the uncircumcised thing. So she cuts off the uncircumcised part of her son, Vataga l'raglav, and she threw it down at his feet. So again, we don't know if Moses is being threatened with death because he didn't circumcise his son, or we don't know if the son is being threatened to die because he wasn't circumcised. But apparently, Moses did not circumcise his son. So Tzipporah, when she realizes that's a danger to this whole mission, she does it herself. She takes a flint knife and circumcises her son, who is of indeterminate age at this point, and throws that little piece down at the feet of her husband. Vatomer, and she says, Ki chatan damim ata li. For
How do you know
you
it's at her
are,
husband? How do you know it's at her husband?
well, at his feet. So
Maybe
yes,
what she thinks for God is God's feet.
that could be, or at her son's feet.
Yeah.
But she then, after throwing it down on the ground, she says to her husband, Chatan damim, a bridegroom of blood are you, Li, to me. Whatever that particular ritual ceremony means, it is not one of the wedding ceremonies that the rabbis incorporated into a Jewish wedding.
Be an
Oh.
interesting ceremony.
Yeah, I
Ceremony.
mean, I tell couples if they have their bar bat mitzvah kiddush cup to use it in their ceremony. I don't tell couples if they have the foreskin of the man to use it in the ceremony and the wife can throw it at his feet.
Oh
Ew.
my gosh.
But that's apparently a ritual.
It was.
Maybe it was a Midianite ritual, not a Jewish ritual. So we don't know what's going on here.
Wait, is it possible that that the circumcision was a Jewish ritual and she's getting the idea that he's on the side of God against the Egyptians, so she better make her son Jewish, whatever
Yeah,
that
I
meant
mean,
at that time.
clearly that's what's going on.
That's what's happening. Okay.
Yeah. Except that where did she learn of this from? Since the
Hmm.
last time we heard about circumcision was Abraham and Isaac.
Hmm.
Mm.
And we don't know anything about Moshe.
Not only that, we have no record in the end of Genesis or the beginning of Exodus that the Israelites were circumcising while they lived in Goshen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There is no circumcision statement, even in the midst of this throwing the kids into the water or strangling them at birth. This is the first thing we hear of circumcision since the circumcision story in Genesis.
Mm.
You would think that circumcision, that a lot of babies would have died, right, from infection in those
Well,
days.
or died from later infections because they weren't.
But more, I would
So
think,
yeah, we don't know.
yeah.
We don't know who was doing what when, except for whatever evidence we have from the ancient Near East. But is this Zipporah saying, Moses, you and all your brethren have forgotten this ritual, so you better start it again? Or is this using a Hebrew ritual in a Midianite way of taking it and throwing it at the same? Now our marriage is sealed in blood.
Mm.
Well,
So yes,
that's why this editor redactor put it here, because he
yeah,
had to
that
put
would
it
be
after what God said about killing your son, your firstborn. So this makes it look like she's doing that as a sacrifice so that they won't kill the firstborn.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, the editor
Yeah.
redactor took some story and chopped it up into little pieces. No pun, well, pun intended, and threw the pieces at us in different directions.
Hmm.
So yeah, 20, 24, 25, 26. We don't know where this story comes from. We can only look at commentaries. So now we have the tagline, verse 26. Vayiref mimenu az amra chatan damim lemulot. So Vayiref mimenu. So she released from him. She then somehow again finished the ritual. And again, it's a strange word, a strange reading.
Yeah.
We'd have to go to some ancient Near Eastern scholars to find out any kind of parallel rituals. But as Amra, and then she said, Chatan damim lemulot, you are a bridegroom of bloods for circumcisions.
Mm.
Who is she talking to?
Apparently Moses, because she's throwing it at somebody's feet, and less likely that she's telling her son he's now a bridegroom of bloods. So if she is the Ishto, she is his wife, then he is Chatan, her husband.
Katan.
Next week,
For 2 weeks.
continuing the story, and Aaron enters the picture. But Aaron enters the picture next week when God says to Aaron, go connect up with your brother. So this is what you'll be practicing reading next week. Vayomer Adonai el Aharon, lech likrat Moshe, hamidbara, vayelech, vayifkeshehu bahar ha'elohim, vayishak lo. Again, notice there'll be ambiguity here. Aaron is going all the way to the Har Elohim, and Vayishak Lo, he kissed him. Who's doing what to whom? So,
Yeah.
things to ponder for next week. Short reading.
Oh, it's only
Vayagid Moshe la'Aharon et kol divrei Adonai asher shalacho ve'et kol ha'otot asher tzivahu. 29. Vayelech Moshe ve'Aharon Vayasfu et kol ziknei b'nei Yisrael. 30. Vaydaber Aharon et kol hadvarim asher diber Adonai el Moshe. Vayas ha'otot le'enei ha'am. Once again, he did. Is this the Aaron or the Moshe? Ponder as you read. 31. Vaya amen ha'am vayishma'u ki fagad Adonai et b'nei Yisrael v'chi ra'a et onyam vayikdu vayishtachavu.
And we meet in 2 weeks, right, Rabbi?
That is titled 3-1. So that is
Next week.
No,
Next
2 weeks.
Yeah.
not next week.
2 weeks.
Oh,
No, next
oh,
week is the first.
No, next
Okay.
week is the 29th.
No, there is no
There is
29th.
no 29th.
The first.
so it's
It's
the
the
first.
The
right.
first.
That's next week. There's no 29th this year.
That's true.
Oh,
No leap year.
so we
And-
meet next week then.
We do meet next week, but it's March.
It's March. I can't believe it's March. March.
And
And take a
Purim.
look at a little side note of
Wow.
fun. Take a look at your English calendar. This is the rare occasion when February is February is an exact block of 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No
Hmm.
hanging over.
right. Oh.
Means Sundays.
There's
Starting-
always 4
starting on
Sundays,
Sunday.
Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, Saturdays in February,
Mhm.
but there's rarely 4 Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays in order.
Right.
Mhm.
And we meet every day, every Sunday in March.
So we meet March. If you look at the material, we meet March 1, March 8, March 15, March 22, and March 29.
Yeah.
We don't meet on April 5.
Correct. That's
April
Easter.
5 is Chol HaMoed Pesach and Roman Easter, but we will meet on April 12th, which is Eastern Easter. And we do meet on Palm Sunday.
I detest Palm Sunday.
Good, so you can study Hebrew.
Oh, yeah.
Well, everyone, stay safe
right.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, have a good week. Stay dry, stay safe, stay